Can't hear a thing. No, nothing. I'm not good at sign language either, and I can't do interpretive dance. Excellent. I might just take over the show now because everyone can hear me and not you. Welcome to Brain Food, everybody, the Lauren Sharp Show today. Oh my God, I feel like I've got my finger on the red button and Donald Trump's going to be blown up. But anyway, let's not talk about that. We're going to talk about TA apparently and recruiting in the Australian market today because Hung has been silenced. So I'm going to ask him to respond to all of our questions via interpretive dance. So Hung, I hope you've limbered up today. Interpretive dance is your mode of conversation. Oh, Andrea's piped up. Somebody do something. Oh, Andrea, stuck with me today, Dal. Stuck with me. So let's hope he does get on with this soon. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. So hands up, who's going to ATC next week? I hope everybody is. It's apparently sold out already. Joe's got everything all organised and ready to rumble. And those who missed out on hiring success day, oh my God, was that an amazing damn event. I am still in awe of some of the speakers and some of the things that they've done out there. But this is weird, me sitting here talking without anyone else to talk to. I do find that a little bit odd. Wait on, will I let Hung back in now?
You can.
I've got you.
All right, brilliant. That's fine.
I think everyone else think that's actually very good too.
Stuff. Good stuff. Okay, fine. At least we're here. Thanks for holding the fort temporarily there, Lauren.
Well, you were going to be dancing, my friend.
It's all right. I mean, it's all entertainment. But I'm a little bit annoyed because all it took was a refresh, and we're there. Emily, that's fine. All you got to do is she actually here. I mean, basically, you join this and you're in the crowd. So if Emily's in the crowd, that's all good. If not, I don't know what to say. You simply click on the link and you register on it, and that's it. But I can see Craig is here. We're going to bring him on as soon as he is able to interact with the thing. But whilst we've got you, Lauren, we may as well kick off because I understood that you did some research here about sort of what the there's Watto. How you doing, Craig?
Can everyone hear me okay? We don't have the same problems.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone's fine. So guys, apologies for all of that. It's a bit of a snafu.
The power is dizzying. The fact that I was in charge of Brain Food on my own. Oh my God.
It was a scary moment. I mean, these are. It reminds me of the submarine captain who made a decision whether to actually press the nuclear button or not. That local decision to save the entire planet, decided not to pull the trigger. Lauren had a couple of seconds like that where she had the choice for global destruction. She didn't do it. So that's brilliant. All right, folks, let's just get on with it. Lauren, Craig, everyone knows who you are, but just give us a quick one-liner for the folks who don't. Lauren, you go first. Who are you? What it is you do?
I'm the good-looking half of Tarpod. No, I'm half of Tarpod, so Australia's leading podcaster and talent acquisition and New Zealand, co-host of the ITAs, the Internal Talent Awards, and all-round chatterbox, really.
Yeah, cool. Great to have you on the show here, Lauren. Craig, quickly introduce yourself, mate.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Craig Watson, obviously what Lauren said, but the other half, and then also do some consulting into TA across Australia and New Zealand as well.
Fantastic stuff. Great to see you guys. And of course, you two are the leading sort of commentators, podcasters, certainly in the Australian market and all the rest of it. So you're interacting with recruiters all the time here. And I think that gives us a little bit of a good indication, at least, what are the conversational sort of topics that have occurred in the market in 2024. Let's just start off with general sentiment. I mean, where do you think the market has been for you, for the industry generally? What have been the key trends that you've spotted? What has been the pluses in the industry this year? What have been the minuses? Give us an overview on this, guys.
You go first, Lauren, as you always do.
Okay. Well, Harvey's piping up already. Well, I find that the market's been slow. Everyone's still really cautious around hiring out there in a general sentiment. Obviously, some industries are still running. We've still got a skill shortage, but yet we're still seeing our unemployment sit around that 4.2% at the moment, which has been steady like that for about 6 months. The Federal Reserve is saying they need to get that down to about 3.5 before we can even start looking. Sorry, it needs to go up, and obviously our inflation needs to get down to below 3.5, 3% before they'll start looking at rate cuts on interest rises, etc. But it's just a slow market. But our people are losing their jobs still. That people are not seeing the value in TA. We're seeing a lot more offshore TA to Southeast Asia, and they're losing a lot of the middle and high management in TA, I feel, and I think that that's going to come back and bite a few companies on the bum.
That's really interesting. By the way, the offshoring of different parts of the TA function, we're definitely seeing that, I think, in different parts of the world as well. The companies under pressure to do more with less, quote unquote. One of the ways to do that is to look at the different roles and functions within TA and try and position those jobs or those tasks in areas where it's cheaper to do. So for the UK market, typically a lot of jobs are going down to South Africa. I assume in Australia, the biggest options are probably going to be Philippines, Indonesia, somewhere like that, right?
Yeah, and I think that not only that, they're also some teams are becoming leaner and flatter, which is really almost eliminating that management level, and they're turning to some fractional work as well. So there are opportunities out there for project works where companies can control a little bit more of their budget via projects.
Yeah. So essentially, not only physical distribution of the function, so geographical dispersal, should I say, but also from a contractual point of view, you're not taking on so many sort of permanent heads, because actually, I think we've had 2 sort of rounds of having big cuts and then a big spike of recruiting again. I think companies are more than twice been sort of shy now, aren't we? We're kind of thinking, okay, maybe we're gonna be very careful with this and start pulling in more interim resource rather than a full-time resource, which can suit some people sometimes, but it obviously means there's a lot of people that are a little bit more insecure economically, and they're looking at what's going on, always looking at next gig and what have you. Very interesting. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Lauren.
Sorry, I'll just take over now. It's my show.
Go ahead. Absolutely.
I just saw there was a question pop up in the chat there about RPO, and looking at what RPO is doing in the States, and it's a very big offshore, onshore model of RPO in the States. In Australia, it's not. The RPO, it doesn't seem to be taking off as big as it is in the rest of the world. It's cheaper for, I think, an Australian business to have their own recruitment department than to run it in an RPO.
Are there any big RPO players here? I mean, folks in the audience, is there anybody? Because in sort of UK, we're always thinking of the Kelly Services of this world, the AMSs. There's like, okay, classic big guys like that. And then there's a whole suite of smaller organizations that are chipping away at different parts of the RPO market. Are there equivalents here in Australia, or has that happened, or what?
Yeah, similar here. There's like Randstad Sourceright, which is large here. You've got AMS. You've also got elements of Korn Ferry through Future Step and other businesses like that. But also, like you said too, in Europe there are mid-size People Scout. There are quite a number of businesses that are playing in that mid-tier, which tend to gravitate towards the mid-tier companies as well.
Yeah. What about sectoral stuff? Is there any sectors that have proven resilient in Australia in terms of demand? Which are they, and why do you think that's the case?
Well, definitely anything relating to healthcare, aged care, allied health, and also probably our education system. It's an area, obviously, as you've got an aged economy, there's more need for that area. There's been a real commission in the last couple of years and resources directed towards it. But we just do not have the people or the headcount in Australia to fill the roles. And then you come into all the visa problems of bringing people in from overseas to fill those, particularly lower end in the aged care sector. Would you agree with that, Lauren?
Yeah, I would, but we're also looking at a massive, we've got a massive labour shortage. Absolutely. Our unemployment's sitting at 4.2%. We've got the biggest migration rates at the moment since post-World War II. It's
As in
our
migrating
population
out?
in.
Mm.
And
Okay.
that's trying to fill those skills gaps, because like we're looking at the police force in Western Australia and South Australia are running ad campaigns across the UK for experienced police to come and work here in Australia. And we've got massive shortages across the nation in the police force. We're finding hard to get transport workers. Like I think Hobart, I just mentioned this week, they've got a massive drive on for bus drivers down in Tasmania at the moment, and they're just finding some of the jobs that you need to physically be present for that don't offer a hybrid or those work from home models are finding it very difficult to find people on the ground. So, but we're also finding I did a bit of research recently into our skilled migration visa. We are falling down big time in this. And there's been some articles published recently that we've got about 621,000 people who are here in Australia on skilled work migrant visas. So they have passed the visa test, they're skilled in either engineering, as a chiropractor, a doctor, or what have you, and the government's brought them in. But the governing bodies for these areas are not allowing these people to work because they're not qualified to technically work in Australia according to the industry governing body. So then these people are coming out here and they are having to pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to be requalified and have their certifications recognised here, and they don't have that budget after moving country. So we've got probably 2/3 of that 621,000 are in rideshare, food delivery, menial jobs where they could be adding to our community in a more meaningful way in these more specialised areas.
Really interesting, guys. So two things that seem to be very resonate with me is that the critical workers, like the jobs, remember back in 2000, the COVID era, when everyone was thinking, all right, amazing, all of these critical workers, the sanitation people, the healthcare workers, all of those physical on-premise people, we were thinking we can't, obviously society can't do without those folks. The skill shortages for those roles has been persistent all the way through the process. We still can't hire nurses. We still can't hire sanitation workers. Still can't hire drivers. But where we have had a surplus of candidates are all of those jobs that went remote. In other words, the desk jobs. A friend of mine calls them the email jobs. Which I think she's kind of denigrating what we all do. But yeah, listen, have you got an email job, folks? You do, because you're watching this on a laptop right now. I guarantee you, you're taking a break from your email job to watch this webinar via your laptop. I think that group of people, us, we've been in a white collar recession for the last 2 years or so. In the sense that the email jobs have not grown, and in fact we've chopped back because you know what, we're either returning back to office, or we've got AI that is going to do a lot of this type of work, or we can offshore. By the way, remote jobs are more obviously offshoreable than on-premise jobs. I mean, we shouldn't need to say that, but we need to kind of underline it because it's clear. So those jobs, I think we're going to see a surplus of candidates, but we still have this massive skill shortage on the critical workers that, let's face it, are of the cheaper workers, lower sort of salaries, work that native people typically don't want to do. So you've got to bring in immigration for people to do that. And typically in recruiting, there haven't been popular sectors for us to recruit because the fees aren't particularly high. And it's high volume stuff that basically hasn't really had the high status in recruiting. In recruiting, there's tiers of status, isn't there? There's the headhunter, finance, let's say, all those big fee stuff. Then there was tech. That was like a big thing, everyone charging into tech. But no one was really, the lowest status stuff was connected with the work that was also perceived as lower status. So yeah, interesting times for us in recruiting, because it could be the stuff that previously we looked down on and said, okay, we're not interested in recruiting this function. That's where the demand is. So we need to move there, don't we?
And interesting, like you said there, with the high volume sector is also the one that can be influenced most easily by AI, because it's a lot less, although it's more people in the funnel, it's a lot less moving parts in terms of how technical it is as recruitment. So looking at AI coming into those areas, automating a lot of that part of recruitment. So in the tech sector, finance sector, where some of the recruiters have been losing their jobs because of the demand, in the high demand sectors that are high volume, a lot of that has been replaced by automation. So it's a sort of like double tsunami, and coming from both sides.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Go on, Lauren, about to say something.
Coin on that too. If we cross over to New Zealand, they're estimating that their unemployment is going to be up to around, by the end of first quarter next year, around 5.5%. So what the problem is over there, they've got an abundance of tech workers and things like that who are really battling to find jobs because of the major cutbacks. Yet they've got population negative because so many people left after the major lockdowns. All the skilled workers left. So they're short on skills. They don't have high unemployment, but it's all in the wrong areas, as we were just saying. And we're also looking at over there in New Zealand that they're coming out of a recession as well. So they've had a really rough run of it.
Yeah, I had a few chats with a couple of Kiwi folks in the event earlier this week with Smart Recruiters, and they were saying exactly that. It was like, look, as tough as it might be in Australia, actually it might even be worse in terms of the economic conditions in New Zealand. Let's talk about the immigration side really quickly. I don't think any country has every country I visit always complain about the immigration system because it's whatever it is typically mega flawed. And Aussies might be surprised to know that the Brits have historically loved the Aussie immigration system and said, yeah, let's go Australia style, as if the Aussies have got it sorted. No one's got it sorted. So how do we sort the immigration system here? What needs to happen? Do you think that would be positive to get the workers into the right jobs and kind of lower the cost of employment, but also make sure that people already here are actually doing the jobs that they could and should be doing?
I think with the immigration side of things, 30% of our population in Australia, which has just ticked over 27 million recently, are born not in country, are from outside of Australia. And so that's quite a big number when you look at that. And if we're bringing in so many skilled workers to fill these gaps, but these people can't work, we need to work out how we can get some sort of subsidy that they are going to be able to have, like a HECS payback, which is our higher education scheme, where you, like a student loan, where they can have that sort of thing where as soon as they start their job and it's related to their tax file number, that they are going to be able to fill out forms, get their qualifications, go to work, and out of their pre-tax dollars, they are paying the organisation or the government back for these certifications until their debt is wiped. And I think that's the only way that you're going to have to be able to do that. But where the disconnect is, and Craig and I had this discussion earlier in the week, is that you're getting public servants, we need to work out this, how are we going to fix this? Let's gauge two academics who have never left an education system and have no real life experience. And we'll engage them to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to write us a paper to fix something that they'd have no idea what's going to happen in the working environment. And that's exactly what's happening at the moment. And I think it's going to be departments of commerce are going to need to sit down and start listening to business groups, start listening to the companies who are bringing in migrants, who are, we're screaming for these people. These people are here and they're driving our bloody Ubers.
And the other thing you've got to look at too, Hung, is that Agency Recruiter in Australia has RCSA, it has APSCO as lobbying groups. Talent acquisition as a group doesn't really have a lobbying influence in government. And until we get there, our thoughts, and we have great thoughts because we're talking to people every single day about what hiring looks like, who's hiring, what sectors are hiring and where, without looking at data driven by government. We've got face-to-face on the ground knowledge, and we need to be included in that conversation. And there's many facets to it too, because we have a housing crisis at the same time. You wouldn't think about it with a country this size. There's plenty of places to build houses. It's just not happening at the moment. So I think that there's a lot of work that can be done. It has to be done at government level, but government are probably engaging not the right types of people to do their consulting or their research for them.
Yeah, so it sounds like ideally you want to have more conversations, so sort of a government that's prepared to listen to recruitment bodies, staffing bodies, because otherwise, as you say, we're the people actually at the front of it. We're having the same conversation in the UK, by the way. We've got a new Labour government in there. They're going to make some big changes in terms of what is an employed person, what is the status of a worker. It will also impact the types of people that want to come in and so on, and there is some hope that there's at least space for dialogue, because that sort of mutual feedback loop is very, very important. And by the way, I need to just give you an overview, but every country I visit has similar issues. I was in Canada earlier this year. You could almost like carbon copy a lot of stuff we're saying in there. But it's very interesting that the developed economies sort of say we're all encountering very similar things. Demographic crisis, native population getting older. There's a inequality problem in the sense that the workers we do have don't want to do the work that kind of needs to be done, and therefore we bring external people in, but then we have kind of a very flawed immigration system where these people are not coming in fast enough. There's too many barriers to entry. They end up doing the wrong kind of work. You get very qualified people, running food stalls and stuff like this. Not to say anything wrong with the food stall, but I could run a food store. I should be the person running the food stall. I don't have qualifications per se, but someone who's a PhD or a research scientist or whatever, that person needs to be in a laboratory and adding value in the way they should be adding value.
Sharice just said in the chat there, like 15,000 Uber drivers in Perth, and they are all immigrants competing for business. Now, like Perth and Adelaide are deemed as regional hubs to our government. They're not capital cities in the sense for migration. So the immigration department try to push out visas and make it easier to get a skilled visa in a regional hub. So not everyone's coming straight to the big cities such as Brisbane, Perth, Sydney and Melbourne and sticking onto that east coast. So they're distributing the skills elsewhere. But if they're not qualified to use their skills, that's just another Uber driver or shelf stacker in Coles.
You know what? It's very, very few countries have been able to solve this urban agglomeration problem where everyone is obviously sucked into Melbourne or Sydney or those big obvious options because they'll have the best opportunities. They'll have the greater kind of opportunity just emerging. You've got to just kind of really put infrastructure investment into less salubrious places, and that's a big lost lead. That's a 10-15 multi-decade sort of commitment, and it's very difficult to do. You mentioned sort of earlier, Craig, obviously Australia is a continental sized country. It's got, why is there only habitation on very small parts of the coast? You look at Perth, it's one city, it's what, 1 million people. Why is there not like 10 cities like that on the west coast? So it could happen. It just takes long-term planning and a bit of commitment. Folks, we're going to keep moving on and rolling individuals through. So thank you so much, Craig and Lauren, for coming on. Do hang on in the show. I might bring you all back in a bit. Lauren, thanks for holding the fort as well. I think you could have probably just I might just vacate the seat. You're much better at this than me, mate. So we'll have to do that. But Lauren and Craig, great to have you on the show. We're going to say goodbye to you now. I'm going to bring on some other folks and we'll see where we go from there.
Thanks, Matt.
Obviously, folks, if you're not already following Lauren and Craig on LinkedIn, please do that. They have the #1 podcast in Australia. I think it's one of the #1 podcasts anywhere, called Tarpod, of course. If you're not already subscribed to Tarpod, please make sure you do that. I'm going to bring on a couple of our friends here who have worked in the kind of in fact, let's bring Ross on as well. Ross, I'll bring you on as well. Emily, I think we've lost Emily, but I'll bring you on once you come back in, and we'll see where we're at.
We have two of Matt.
You know what? You can never have enough Matt Woodward. There he is. But we might have to get rid of one of you, sir. Let me see if I can just blast you off here.
Well, get rid of the one with the shoes in the background because she hasn't worked out how to merge her.
Oh, I've got rid of both of them. That's not what I wanted to do. But let's introduce ourselves here first. Andrea, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What did you do?
I'm Andrea Kirby. I run an event and community group called Talent Table for all the in-house talent acquisition and talent people in Australia.
Okay, amazing. Great to see you as usual, Andrea. I will, Emily, thank you so much. I'll bring you on in a sec. Matt Woodard, in fact, quite correct to correct me on that. Ivan, I've made that mistake multiple times with Matt, and he's been very patient with me. and not really been outraged at my consistent errors. But Matt, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Thanks, Hung. Hi everybody. Matt Woodard, TA, been in TA for 20 years. Most recently started my own business, Scaler, helping scaling businesses hire and fix up their TA processes. Also run the Melbourne Talent Meetup. I've been running it for 8.5 years or so.
Fantastic. And it is one of the best kind of grassroots business sort of meetups around. I had the pleasure of attending a few of these. It's such a fantastic thing to see things like this go on. Okay, we also have Ross Clennett here. Ross, wonderful to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself, what it is you do?
G'day, Hung. G'day, everyone. Yes, Ross Clennett. I was an agency recruiter for 14 years. Last 21 years, I've been self-employed. I'm a high-performance coach, so I work with recruitment agency owners, and I run public training programs for recruiters, leaders of recruiters, and I've had a weekly blog for 17 years and 3 weeks.
Amazing. And by the way, folks, Ross's commentary on the market, I think, is excellent. And he's featured a number of times. What the fuck? He's featured. Sorry, no, that was just loud noises. I was wondering what was going on, but I think it's all okay. All right, Ross. By the way, Ross's blog, excellent. Do make yourself available for it. Feel free to share it, link into the chat stream, Ross, if you fancy other people being aware of this. And we have Emily here as well. Emily, great to see you. Thanks for being patient earlier. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. So I'm Emily Atkins. I lead talent acquisition at LinkedIn for all our non-tech hiring across our APAC region. So whilst I lead a TA team and have the, I suppose, the benefit of using our LinkedIn products, I feel very fortunate, I think, to be able to be, I suppose, being part of this future of recruiting. Because of course, LinkedIn would say that we are, probably pushing out product right now that have those AI features that are going to help us all do the high value work that we really want to be doing, rather than focusing on the high volume stuff.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, Emily, and great to get you. I think you've been on Brain Food before, and one of the big values that you have is this unique perspective of being both a TA leader from an operator perspective, but also working, of course, for one of the most important vendors, maybe the most important vendor that's actually servicing the space. So very, very interesting for us to review this. Okay, we've just heard Craig and Lauren give an overview of where we're at in terms of hiring in Australia in 2024. Really interesting to observe some of these. I want to focus a little bit on the tech and TA marketplace itself. Like, that was a boom space for recruiting, probably for several years, really, maybe even a decade long. We had a kind of a mini boost back. Sort of after the pandemic lockdown, everyone experienced, this huge spike of hiring demand, which made recruiters at one point the most in-demand professions. I think on LinkedIn it was published, recruiters is one of the most in-demand job on platform, I think, in 2021. What do you think has happened to that market since then, and is it realistic to say it's never going to come back to that level, and where do you think it will level off to? We're talking about TA, we're talking about tech TA in particular. Thoughts on this? Andrea, let's go to you first.
Look, I think I might leave Matt to talk on the tech TA side. It's not the biggest part of my community, but we're definitely seeing lots of redundancies, as Lauren and Craig said earlier. What's actually interesting is that there's a lot of the senior roles are disappearing. So just this week, I've had 3 heads of talent acquisition reach out to me to say that they've been made redundant. And I've had a number of calls. I've been doing a lot of calls into heads of TA and CPOs to understand from them what's going on in the market. And there's a definite push, or there's a definite lack of interest in talent acquisition as part of HR because people are not recruiting. So the minute the companies are stopping their recruitment, unless they're in things like aged care and childcare, the TA teams are being made redundant. There's not an expectation or an interest to move them into a broader talent role. So as a profession, I do think there is some pressure for us to widen our skill set in HR to make us more valuable across the entire HR piece around internal hiring and mobility and skills, understanding the skills in the workforce and all of those things.
Yeah, very sober analysis, Andrea, but thank you for that. I think we need to move away from any kind of naive optimism. We need to, we have a responsibility not to be Debbie Downers, obviously. No one needs to be, wallowing in depression, but at the same time, we didn't do the industry a disservice if all we roll forward is platitude and, some kumbaya type stuff. We're in a situation of big change. And yeah, it looks like we need to reset and think exactly where we need to go forward.
I'd have to say, yes, I'm not a Debbie Downer, because I actually see amazing opportunity for those TA people that are willing to step outside being just recruiters. I mean, some of us, I'm an ex-HR person that moved into recruitment, so I have a passion for talent acquisition. But, there's a massive opportunity for us to do some really interesting things in our organisations. We've just got to get the CPOs to understand our skill set and make those moves.
Emily, you're nodding your head vigorously on this. What are our thoughts on it? I mean, because TA expanding scope and kind of going back into the HR fold, like we've also, let's be honest, we've also spent the last 20 years trying to separate from TA, from HR, should we say, and create a separate identity. And now we seem to be going back. Is it not a little bit like, okay, I've left wife number one, and I've played the field. Now I've got to go back. I mean, how do we play that politically to make it make sense? Or is it even a political conversation? What are your thoughts?
It's an interesting conversation, because in my own personal experience, I came from professional services where they were probably leading the way in terms of how they managed a talent function. They were often part of the OD organisation, where they were really thinking about skills and internal mobility and all those things. And then in the sort of maybe 2002 to 2010, and let's not forget that we had a downturn in that time, we definitely saw that there were TA starting to have a seat at the table, because they were being able to connect, skills to, internal mobility and performance management and all those things. And then all of a sudden they needed to be part of that conversation. Obviously then, we move into this great sort of upswing and uptick in hiring demand. TA teams grew. We were all part of that. It continued to do so, and obviously paused somewhat during COVID, but then we had that uptick again. So you have these big teams. And it starts with that organizational design where, even at LinkedIn, we had, large teams, but also, a lot of layers. I'm a director, we have senior manager, and so forth. We're delayering those teams, and we're expecting more of our recruiters, and we're expecting them to be able to have the conversation about talent, and to be able to have a conversation about not just what's happening with that one requisition or that one hire that you need to do, but how does that impact your business? And so we as LinkedIn, but also, as a profession, need to start thinking about skills. And what does your business need in order to be successful in 1 year, 3 years, and in the future? And then how does that connect back to your talent strategy? So LinkedIn and ourselves have become a part of a talent org, and we're working very closely with, rather than having an HR org and a TA org and a L&D org, we're becoming closer again to that L&D or talent development space, where internal mobility sort of connects us all. And it's exciting. Have we got it all right? No, but I truly believe that skills first hiring is going to help us get there. If we can get all of our heads out of pedigree-based hiring, even we talked about immigration. Oh, well, they don't have a network here. They won't be able to work in this, go-to-market role. Who cares? Have they built relationships in the past? Yes. Have they been able to do business? Yes. What do they have to offer in terms of skills? And it's sometimes really hard for our business leaders when they themselves are under pressure to deliver, to be able to achieve the goals that they have set themselves, or their organizational teams have set themselves, to be able to make that mindset shift. So it will take time, and there are some that are doing it better than others, and even in our own organization. And we advocate for this, but hopefully, if we continue to have the conversation, we will start to see that change. Dare I say it, I think our education system is holding us back as well. And our immigration system, we value so much a university degree. And I strongly believe that doesn't dictate whether you're going to be a strong performer or not. And here I'm talking a lot about hiring in that professional space, or the experienced hire, but there are many people that have proven to be really strong performers without a degree or without an experience in the country in which they now live. So I will go on. I'm quite passionate about this. It drives me nuts. And I've got teenagers about to enter the workforce, so I can see it's going to happen.
Very, very interesting observations, Emily, and I think from what I'm hearing from you, it kind of aligned pretty much with a talk that we saw at the Smart Recruiters event from Gareth Flynn, who talked about skills-based hiring being the sort of the path with which TA can then expand into a more holistic sort of talent function that encompasses internal mobility, which has to have that sort of understanding that skills is the way to go forward. So it looks like a morphing of the organization, morphing of the identity, and using skills to get there. Matt, let's go to you on this, because we had this chat offline. You mentioned your meetup had a big sort of rebrand, and I think it was more or less along those lines as well, wasn't it? Would you like to tell us a little bit about that? Why you made that decision? How do you see this future for what we're currently calling TA going forward?
Yeah, I think just pick it up on Andrew's point from earlier. I think as we have, to use Emily's phrase, delayered, there's been a demand for TA over the last certainly couple of years that I've seen to kind of taking on more. I mean, hiring is one small part of the overall TA kind of skill set remit now, and I think because of that, the lines are being blurred very much from traditional marketing roles and to HR roles and your onboarding and all those kind of things. So I think there seems to be a bit of a blurring of the lines somewhat. So it made sense to me that within the industry here, that talent is becoming much more of a sort of holistic thing now, whereas recruitment seems to be quite a limited and almost dated kind of word. Talent is very much where it's at, and I think people within TA want to know more about the broader spectrum of things as well. So actually what we did was rebrand so that we could have a much more inclusive community that events that catered for a broader audience, and actually tried with an aim of trying to bring all of these different sort of people functions together, because that seems to be where it's where we're definitely heading.
All right, let's talk about branding. Because is it time to dispense with talent acquisition as a identity? And if so, what replaces that? Thoughts on this, Ross? Let's pipe you in as a very much a neutral observer here, because you're coming in observe it for outside. Are we just playing word games, or do we need to actually have a very clear, identity that's different from this idea of working as a constantly hiring external in? Because that's what TA is acquisition of external talent permanently into companies. But hey, guess what? If companies are less interested in growing that way, maybe they're more interested in retaining and recycling talent internally or growing their own talent a different way. Perhaps we need a different terminology. What are your thoughts on this, Ross?
Well, firstly, I'm no expert. I don't think you need a rebrand. I think TA, as far as I'm concerned, is good. But I'll just add something to what's already been discussed and perhaps put a little bit more meat on the bone, is that when you look at the amount of recruitment that's been done in Australia in the past 12 months, it's still very high, but TA has had a lot less of that. So what I mean by that is that the big end of town has significantly reduced its hiring, and where are TA people disproportionately employed? Of course, it's the big end of town because they've got or have had the volume. But if you look at the data from Jobs and Skills Australia, 43% of Australian businesses were hiring last month, and it's been pretty consistently between 42 and 50% over the last 12 months. Recruitment difficulty went up in August. 50% of organisations that are hiring are reporting difficulty. Now, there's a lot of recruitment going on, and I suspect disproportionately a lot of this hiring is being done by hiring managers and HR people, not TA. And this is where the expertise of TA is being missed, because all of this headcount cutting and, of course, not a lot of recruitment, or not proportionally as much at the top end of town. You've got a lot of recruitment being done by people who still think, well, I'll run an ad on a job board, and literally they've got nothing else to give after that. And with respect to them, that's not their job. They're a hiring manager, not a recruiter or a TA person. So I think the importance of TA is even more critical in an environment where we've got a lot of people who are coming into Australia who are not automatically going to be considered for the jobs that they're skilled for, which again circles back to a discussion that we've already had. So I think the need for TA is even greater. So I don't think there's a branding issue. It's just the ongoing issue of TA ensuring that they're seen as valuable and not just dispensable as soon as hiring volume drops.
But I also, I continue to think that TA has a problem with, except for, you know, people like Emily, absolutely brilliant. And certainly in the larger organizations where they're led by highly experienced heads of talent acquisition that have been in the market for 100 years, not you, Emily, but if you start to look below that big end of town, Ross, you've got people that have come up through the organisation or through TA, often from an agency background, where they're not quite getting how to build the business case for the value of TA. They're busy recruiting, but they're not using data, and they're not using, you know, all of the stuff you can put in place to show the value that they're offering. And when your TA function is seen as glorified admin, which some of them are, and we've had hiring managers say it, I had a hiring manager say it to me, and we see that there, and a lot of HR directors would think that of their TA function. It's just a transactional admin function. We still have a problem in how we are perceived in an organisation.
I did a session a little while ago about for Striving on how to build your TA strategy, and I think that in itself, there's a lot of organizations who still don't have a clear TA strategy in place, and I think that often that can be such a powerful tool to sort of support the TA function, to actually show that the value they are creating for the business. You make sure you're aligned to the overall company strategy. You demonstrate how your function is actually making the business better and how helping the business achieve their strategic goals. Then actually that's when you can really start to show the value of TA as a function. I think there's this opportunity for a lot of companies now, while hiring numbers are generally a little bit low, especially in tech, to actually get your house in order and start preparing your plan, your strategy, start engaging your candidates early, start getting your systems and functions behind the scenes ready, so that you are ready to really hit 25 with with a strong step.
Thank you very much, everyone. Let's really interesting to see sort of where we're at. We might need to do a separate show on this to talk about do we need like a rebrand, repositioning? Does that help the people who are currently in the function? Does it actually help the organization think about people a little bit more? Because if we are tied to, let's say, a certain concept, and it's very difficult to shift the business away from thinking about that concept, then we're going to be in that oscillating flow where, you know, if you're not charging forward and growing, then you're going to get chopped. And I'm of the opinion that actually, you know, if a company isn't growing, then yeah, TA probably should be the first to go. Like who else needs to go? You know, you can't exactly go and push other departments further forward than yourself because you're the function that's there to grow a business. If the company is no longer growing, then unless you can do other things and conspicuously do those other things, then we're always going to be in that firing line. But this definitely may be a topic for another conversation. What I want to shift to is a couple of other ideas that I think really emerged in my own thoughts over the last couple of weeks, which might be interesting. Firstly, what should a TA function do right now, or a TA leader do at 2024, having seen 2024, now preparing for 2025? What are your recommendations for them and their own departments going into a year and going into next year? Any thoughts along those lines? Emily?
Yes, and probably builds on what you were saying, Matt, as well. If you don't have a talent people strategy, you probably need to start there, particularly for those who are in a small business where maybe they are doing that all-encompassing role that is HR and TA and learning and everything. You know, what are the people priorities for your business? And you should be asking your leaders, what are your priorities? And if people aren't your priority, then you need to work out if it's down the list, what is it that you need of people right now to be able to then say, what are the skills? So for me, it's about understanding the talent strategy, and within that, what are the priorities within that? And then understand how that impacts TA, and then understand what the growth, you know, much bigger. If the business is looking to grow, how are you planning on doing that? Is it by automation? Is it by increased headcount? Well, if it's by increased headcount, what are the skills that you're going to need to grow the business? And we obviously know that depending on what business you're in, that there may be the same types of roles, but there could also be the impact of automation. And for some roles, that will mean new jobs, new types of jobs, but equally it also mean that, you know, many people in organizations will be becoming advisors to the business. They won't be doing the repeatable tasks all the time, which is actually a good thing for most people, we would say. And for TA, it's a good thing. I really do think it's a good thing, but it's switching that mindset. As a TA leader, and sometimes change is hard. We all know change is hard as humans. You know, that is a hard thing to get on board with, particularly if you get your energy out of being successful and making that hire. But equally, if you are feeling good about being able to contribute to an internal mobility strategy, or in a smaller business, being able to leverage some skills in that department over to that department or to that very different role. You talked about TA being eliminated because they're the first ones to eliminate. Well, really? Did they have skills where we can add to the business elsewhere until the demand goes up? I think we need to think more broadly. And again, it's that whole talent mindset.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Emily. Anyone got any other thoughts on this? Like, what should TA leaders be doing in prep for 2025?
Yeah, look. Oh, sorry, Ross, you go. I've said a lot.
Look, just very simply, I think educating the hiring managers in exactly their role in maximising the likelihood that when TA puts excellent candidates in front of the hiring manager, that they don't screw it up. So they know what they should be doing, basic candidate courtesies, how to conduct an interview, how to conclude the interview, what appropriate follow-up is, what questions not to ask, what's illegal, understanding cultural nuances. I think all of those things, hiring managers probably think they know how to do all those things. But in my experience in running internal training, there's a massive gap between the competency that hiring managers think they have and the competency they actually have. So I think, to me, without being in that space, I think that's something that TA leaders could well do. Look, I'm sure they're doing it anyway, but revisiting that topic.
It could be we describe that as elevating the kind of recruitment capability of the entire organization rather than trying to centralize it as we're the doers of recruitment, sort of say. Maybe what TA, or what we want to call it in future, is more like an enablement function where our job is to kind of make other people better at it, because that ultimately is the big determinant. So it's almost like, okay, do you centralize, grow a big centralized department, you do everything and it's hands-free for the hiring manager, or do you accept that hiring manager is actually going to be a prominent focus on this, and where they make them better at recruiters, interviewers, assessors, and so on. Very interesting, Ross. Andrea, I do want to hear your view, so go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we have to get better with the data and actually using that to our advantage. I'm still not seeing the majority of TA people putting together dashboards and reports for the board, for the CEO, for their hiring managers that list data that makes sense to them. Time to hire, is sometimes quite a ridiculous metric when, as Ross said, we're sort of not necessarily meeting the strategy of the business and those sorts of things. And we're seeing the rise of the people analytics function now, and we're seeing the rise of business analysts into operational roles in TA. And I think we've just got to get better at the business cases and the data as well to take us forward.
Yeah, very good. Final thoughts for you, Matt. Anything you want to add to this?
No, I think everyone's covered it pretty well. As I said, there's an opportunity right now to sort of start thinking about the plans that we have ahead. As to Emily's point, thinking about what's the North Star, and then trying to create a really clear strategy that allows you to be successful. And I think by doing that, then you demonstrate value to the wider business. You demonstrate capability more broadly than just hiring, just putting bums on seats. You're an integral part of all the business. And I think it's that opportunity to do that training, remind the business that recruitment's everybody's responsibility, not just TAs.
Very good, folks. We close to time, but I want to keep going for a little while longer, just because there's a topic we have to cover, that it affects business at sort of two levels. It affects obviously business in general, but also TA specifically. And this is something you indicated earlier on, Emily, with regards to how is artificial intelligence going to transform the companies, and therefore what it then transforms into the talent function. Like, how do we think it's going to be? And again, if so, how does AI, how does TA stay on the right side of AI, so to say? I see it pretty much like pre-internet. We had a set of way of working. The smarter companies understood what that future direction was and positioned themselves in advance of these changes rather than have to make traumatic changes down the road. Maybe we're in a similar situation now. So artificial intelligence, and here I probably don't give us any sort of proprietary information you're not able to talk about, Emily. But I'm sure what's down the pipe in terms of what tooling is coming from products like LinkedIn. That's going to transform the way in which recruiters work. So what should recruiters be focusing on skill set wise for themselves?
Yeah. And maybe I'll caveat this with, there is a lot of fear mongering about AI, particularly, in the common press that we see every day. And, if history repeats itself, we've seen technological change be good for all of us. Whether it was the internet in TA, no more fax machines, for those of you that are old enough to remember those, to where we're at now, with LinkedIn, where we have had and continuing to build product with AI in it, without, as you say, looking to share proprietary information. As I was saying, we do have the opportunity at LinkedIn to be piloting new AI technology in our products and features. I will just do a bit of a shout out for everyone here that that will be launching at the Talent Connect show in November. If you haven't signed up, please do. It's free. But there is some really exciting stuff going to happen that will make all the boring stuff in our jobs disappear. And when we think about the products that probably many of you are using, like LinkedIn Recruiter, we've already seen huge impact. Andrew, you talk about data. The email response rate for an AI assisted message has significantly increased because of that feature. And we're all training it, not just at LinkedIn. All of us in TA, I think you'll all be aware, you can thumbs up and thumbs down an AI-assisted message or an AI search using the features that are there. We can use natural language. We don't have to be plugging in Boolean searching anymore. This is helping us to be more productive in our jobs. It's not taking away our jobs. So that stuff where we're spending so much time in sourcing and screening and even talking to candidates. We know that there'll be features around assessment, but equally look at the job seeker. The job seeker is going to be applying for jobs that really do search and where they do have the opportunity to be most successful in their job application. So I think it'll help us all. Again, I can't release exactly what is happening, but I would say it's going to be great for the candidate. It's going to be great for the TA function, and it will help us to continue to move towards this North Star, as we all say, of being more strategic partners, of providing more impact to our business leaders, and to do the business critical work that we need, in this age where we are moving very fast.
Very, very good. By the way, Emily, obviously you mentioned the LinkedIn Talent Connect. This is going to be an in-person event, but from what you've mentioned there, it looks like it would also be broadcast and streamable online somewhere. Is that correct?
Yes. That's right. So it is a live event. It's happening in US, but there will be what we call the Talent Connect show, and that, if you just Google it, you'll be able to register for your region online, and it'll be curated in that way. So yeah.
Get to it, folks. Worth doing, because LinkedIn are one of those companies that really is beyond company, in the sense that the big product changes there are going to cascade through into the workaday for us going forward.
And may I add, at that show, spoiler alert, our product leader will be there to launch some of these new features, but it's not a presentation. It's actually a live demo with people from our own team. So you'll see it in action, which is cool.
Fantastic stuff, Emily. Ivan, thank you for your unhelpful comments. Obviously, I'm not able to read stuff as I'm on air, but if you want to copy and paste things I was meant to be doing, then please do so publicly. Okay, let's go to everyone real quick towards the end of this. How does AI sort of impact TA? What's your best recommendation as an operator yourself, Matt? This is probably very sensitive to you, right? So it's like, okay, not only are you advising and coaching and supporting other organizations, you're also in amongst it yourself. So how are you sort of leaning into AI, so to say?
I think just embracing it, just as to Emily's point, it's not going to take our jobs. It's just going to make our ability to deliver a great experience to candidates that much better, that much easier, and which is ultimately what we all want. Just trial it, see what it looks like for your own organization. Speak to experts, seek out people who are do this for a living, and really make sure that whatever solutions you do come up with are bespoke and will grow with you as your business grows as well. I think, the changes that I read something about how at Smart Recruiters event, how everyone loved GPT-3 and it was the best thing ever until GPT-4 came out, and everyone hated GPT-3 because it was so slow and shit. So, I think the rate of change in technology is just massive. Where we're going to be this time next year, who knows? But it's an interesting journey to be on for sure.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Ivan, just a shout out to Ivan. Thank you for your public admonishment. That's fantastic. We will get to that question in a minute, but let's go to Andrea real quick. AI and TA, can you give us a quick 60-second, what's your view on this?
Yeah, I ran some leaders' lunches this year where the only thing that leaders were looking at was ChatGPT. They had no plans to be looking at anything else. They were all almost frightened of it. And the brilliant futurist Rihanna Brown that was running the sessions said, we've got to get out of the reeds of just running our TA functions, our HR functions, and we have to start asking ourselves, what are we going to do come Monday? Because the future isn't 5 or 10 years away. It's actually tomorrow. So as we're sitting here on Friday, ask ourselves, what are we going to do come Monday?
Very good. Thank you, Andrea. Ross, your thoughts on this? Where do you think AI is sitting in the, how do recruiters generally, TA and agency side, how should we deal with this?
Well, I wrote this in my blog a couple of weeks ago, Hung, but I just point to the fact that there was a survey of 3,000 US and UK workers a couple of months ago, and 46% said they believe that AI would be fairer than a human recruiter. And I think that points to a very big issue for our whole sector, whether it's agency recruiters or TA, that whether we like it or not, there's a pretty big chunk of the candidate pool who thinks we're pretty bad at being fair to them in the process of them applying for jobs. And clearly, if AI can improve that experience for them, then they are not going to be shedding a tear for the demise of TA and recruiters. So I think we just want to bear that in mind in terms of our own skill set and the way in which we deal with candidates, because at the moment, candidates or job seekers generally are probably not our greatest advocates.
Really good point, folks. We talk about the requirement of the human touch in recruitment, but guess what? We've been human touch only for a long time, and candidates have not been having a good time with that. So we've got a very low bar to try and beat. So definitely we need to look forward to this kind of cyborg future, so to say, in the sense that we need to be AI-enabled recruiters, because hopefully that will solve some of the candidate experience issues that have been so persistent that they're obviously systemic. They're not a situation where you just have one or two bad recruiters polluting the pond. There's a reason why, the CV black hole is a persistent idea, because we can't manage the response. Maybe AI can help us with that. Okay, cool. Let's do a final question. We're going to go to Ivan's question. I think it's a little bit, it's not a perfectly fine question, but I'm not sure whether we're going to give a particularly objective point of view on it, but let's give us a subjective view on it. So just say your opinion on Ivan's question. How does the maturity of the Oz talent industry compared to other markets? I guess, look, oftentimes I travel, people always say, look, we're so far behind X country or X sort of group of people. I personally don't think that's true. I don't think it's ever true. I think it's just a little bit of, a lack of self-esteem, self-confidence, so to say. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Australia sort of behind, ahead? Where is the industry here compared or relative to other areas of the world? Any thoughts? Go to you first, Matt Woodard.
It's an interesting question, because I think yeah, you're right. I think we can be quite self-deprecating as a nation, but I think there is such great tech coming out of Australia. Just on my podcast, I've had some unbelievable startups and people doing some really interesting things in and around this space. So I think we, to a degree, we're leading the way. We have some great technologies coming out of Australia. I think from TA industry, I think there are probably elements of things that we that we are catching up on from the US. There's, US and Europe, there seems to be a lot more innovation. There's probably a bit more appetite to invest as well. That's something that when we're finding here, there seems to be a reluctance to really over invest in this technology, maybe until it's tried and tested elsewhere. But I think there's stuff that we can learn from overseas, but I think there's also some good stuff we're doing here. We need to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. We should elevate local suppliers, local sort of recruitment heroes, and so on. Absolutely the case. We should also publish more. There's another way to do it. I think generally speaking, the discourse in recruitment is overly dominated by US and UK type commentary. Let's boost the Australian commentators out there. If you're not commentating and making observations and sharing your know-how, go ahead and do that. People want to hear from you. Okay, your thoughts, Emily?
Yeah, I will give it from a perspective of working for a global organization, and I would say that we're probably on par with Europe and the US. I would agree with Matt. Change is probably hard and adoption takes a little longer, probably because we're smaller and we've got business leaders who are less likely to want to change and go into the unknown. But I certainly think we're there and there's appetite for it. I would say if we go, for example, into the APAC region that I support, we've got some leaders who are really excited about doing things differently, but we've also got some that are hanging on to the past. And I think that sometimes can hold TA back in the appetite to be able to, embrace the new world of work and the new way of hiring or the new way of talent management. But, ultimately we're all heading in the same direction, and there's going to be cultural considerations in terms of how a TA function even interacts with business leader that could also be one of the reasons to explain that, beyond obviously investment by the business itself.
Yeah, fantastic. Very good. Andrea, go to you.
Yeah, look, I mean, I came back here in 2015, so it's been a while since I've been in the UK market. But it still seems to me that that there are some differences. I think Australians usually love technology and those sorts of things. I think whether it is because of the reasons Emily and Matt said, we're a little slower to adopt it. I came back here talking about geofencing and those sorts of things, and then in an event last year talked about it again and had to sort of stop the event and explain what it was and why an organisation in Perth or an organisation that has remote locations could be considering things like this. So there are things that pass us by, and whether that's because, as you say, we don't commentate enough. We have one major podcast in Australia. There's not really anyone else making noise and those sorts of things. We have events that are here that are doing their best to get out and about, but we're not getting the same numbers of people turning up to events and things as we used to. So learning feels a little stagnant at the moment.
Thank you, Andrea. Final thoughts, Ross?
I don't think I've got anything to add to what's already been said, except that I still feel like crying when I see an ad that asks for a certain amount of experience in the applicant rather than specify the skills or behaviour that they want. So whenever I see those sorts of ads, I shake my head and
drives me insane.
Sigh and think we've still got a long way to go when people are still thinking a certain amount of experience is going to be a predictor of performance on the job.
What's worse is when you ask for, when you're expecting 10 years experience for a technology that's been around for 5. They're always the ones that make you laugh, right?
The classic way in which recruiters can instantly eviscerate their own credibility is to ask for those things. But folks, listen, we are well over time, so thank you so much for joining us. It's been a super educational experience for me. I have to be honest, most of the reason why I do shows of this type is completely selfish. I feel it's the education is coming all one way. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's say goodbye to you guys and make sure you can get on with the rest of your day and hopefully the rest of your short day, because the weekend's really here. So Emily Atkins, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have your insight and contribution, and also CTA to the Talent Connect session. I'm definitely going to sign up for that. Matt Woodard, great to see you, mate, this week, and great to have you on the show, of course. Same to you, Andrea. Wonderful to see you multiple times since I've been in Mel. Hopefully there's a chat. I don't think maybe this will be it, but I'll be back, of course, and we'll definitely connect with you when I'm next here.
In March.
I hope so. Let's see where we'll make that happen. And Ross Clennett, great to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining. Wonderful to see you, looking well, and keep on the blogging. I think it's great. Make sure people are aware of it, Ross. Okay, that's about it, everyone. Let's move on to the next phase. We're going to keep rolling forward, folks. Brain Food Live never fails, even when technically it's a complete disaster like it was this morning, earlier today. However, we'll be back next week. I'm going to be on my travels again. I'm going to be flying up to Sydney in a couple of days. I think that's actually, is it tomorrow? No, it's Sunday. I'll be in Sid for about 2-3 days. Hopefully, I'll catch a few of you there. I might do something on Tuesday if you're around. And I'll be in Hong Kong for next Friday. So the next session, Brain Food Live, will be how is hiring going in Hong Kong in 2024 and beyond. Once again, we've got a load of local experts come and join us to commentate on what is happening on the Fragrant Harbour. So folks, make sure you sign up for that if you're interested in these regional deep dives. Otherwise, we'll see you again shortly. Thanks for listening, everybody.